Hey guys, welcome back to Vertical Momentum. I'm your host, Richard Kaufman, also known as the Comeback Coach. Guys, make sure you subscribe and hit that notification bell because this episode is going to knock your socks off. We are talking with my brother Nick. We're going to be talking about how to live your life limitless, if I can speak right, but also how to play because I love to play. So this is going to be a great episode. He's my friend Nick. He's an Army Ranger, entrepreneur, coach. He's the Swiss Army knife of positive mental health. Nick, welcome to the show, brother.
Hey, Rich, thanks for having me, man. I'm super excited to be here. Any chance I get to hang with some other veterans and talk about how to live life on their terms, and it's a good time. So I'm happy to be here, brother. Appreciate
and
you.
And I know we've played phone tag on and off for the last couple of years. We finally got it going on. But because I got a traumatic brain injury, if I don't say something, I'm going to forget it. What is your definition of resiliency?
Yeah, well, I was listening to some of your other episodes, and I'm like, oh, that's a great question. And for me, like, I used to be an engineer, right? So I spent over a decade in engineering, and resiliency is a technical term, literally, that describes a material's property to be able to be bent and be, just distorted and spring back to its original shape, right? And so I've thought about that in technical terms many, many times, and I also apply that in my own life because it's about how much can you endure, right? Experience, how deep can you go into the muck and come back out and be okay, right? Or even way better than okay, which is, some of the stuff we're going to dive into today about how to do that. But that's what it means to me, man. You can just take it and keep rolling.
I love it, and I also believe that, there's post-traumatic stress, but there's also post-traumatic growth. And that's something I want to harp today. But first of all, give us a quick down and dirty. Tell us a little bit about how where you come from, where you grew up, a little bit about your service and how you became the man that you are today.
Yeah, I appreciate it, man. So, I grew up in a blue collar family in the Northeast, and just kind of went through the motions in life for a long time. I never was really exactly sure what I wanted to do with my life, and so just kind of, well, the one caveat is I did know I wanted to join the military, but I wanted to join it right out of high school, and that didn't happen. And we can dive into, why if that feels important in a minute. But ultimately, it was a huge shock to my system because my whole plan was I'm going in the military. Instead, I had to figure out what else to do. And so I kind of drifted, and I ended up going to college for engineering. And then I got into the punk rock scene in Boston, and I was playing in bands and just kind of working and, just going through the motions every day until I was about 28 years old. And I met a Ranger who had just gotten out of the military. And then after a few months of spending time with him, he went back in. And when he went back in, I said, you know what, let me try this again. Cause it was still in my heart, right. To serve in the military. And like I said, I was kind of just drifting anyways. So went down to the recruiter's office. That's another episode to talk about what happened from the day I said, hey, I want to get in to the day I actually got in, which took almost a year. But ultimately, I did sign up with a Ranger contract, and went through the selection and training process, and ended up at 75th Ranger Regiment, 1st Battalion in Savannah, and spent 4 years. A lot of combat at that time, right? It was 2008 to 2012, and then when I got out, I had a family now. I had my first child, was married. And, that started another whole adventure of transitioning and figuring out how to be a family man and, get back into civilian life and really reconnect to purpose. And that was a very tumultuous chapter in my life. It's been over 10 years now since I got out. And I now feel like I am so clear about my purpose. I'm so committed and so passionate about what I do, which is coaching now, right? I'm a life coach. I help men and women figure out how to play, figure out how to let go of all that stuff, right? That's keeping them from living the life that they really want to live. And once we get to that clarity, we just go for it, right? And we play all out for the life that they want to create. And it's extremely rewarding, and I love it. It's all I eat, breathe, sleep, think about. And I'm always on my own edge as well. So, through all of that time that I just kind of really breezed over, there have been some really significant events in my life, big challenges, right? We're talking about resilience. Um, I've lost parents, I've lost buddies in combat. I've dealt with my own PTSD, dealt with my own physical issues. Um, I, I have 3 kids. The third kid, when we were pregnant, we thought we were going to lose him, right? So dealt with that whole thing. Um, and then I ultimately got divorced. And, so all of these things have been bending me and, putting me in the forge, melting me down, refining me, right? And then through the power of play, through this community and through the environment that I've created and all the support and everything that I have, and really through this message of playing for your life, um, I've been able to bounce back, right? And I've been at the lowest of the low. I've had a pistol in my mouth. I've been thinking about that decision, and I've consistently made another choice because of the things that I've learned and because of the things that I'm now sharing. So yeah, there's a lot more we could get into, but I'm going to pause there for check for understanding and hear what you have
No,
to say.
great. And the reason I don't talk much a lot, because, I want to get your story out there, and I rather be interested than interesting. So that's why you'll see me pause a lot. And I write stuff down because, like I said, if I don't write it down, I'm not going to remember. But
The same way.
I'm writing what you're saying down. So I'm not doing anything else but paying attention to what you're saying. So bring us back to, you want to join the military, but it takes you forever to join. What was the
Yeah.
issue? What was the issue?
Yeah. Well, when I was 17, I was a junior in high school. At my high school, they had recruiters right in the hallway. Right, we were a technical school, so a lot of kids would just go straight from high school into the military. And I thought, all right, this is my chance. I was a big fan of the Marines marketing, so I figured that was where I was going to go. My grandfather was a Marine in World War II. Saw combat in the Pacific Theater, and I was just always so in admiration of that. And I had some of my dad's friends had been in Vietnam and stuff, and all Marines. So I walked up to the Marine recruiter, who's the only one in the hallway, and I said, "Hey, I'm ready to sign up." And he goes, "Okay, great," and asked me a few questions, and immediately disqualified me due to some medical stuff that I had had as a kid. And I'm like, "What do you mean, no?" Right? He's like, "Well, we won't take you." And it was such a blow to my confidence. It just shattered, all this vision that I had for my life. And so that kind of sent me reeling, right? It was like, well, I don't have another plan, and in the military we use pace, right? We got backup plans for backup plans for backup plans. And it was the first time in my life that it really hit me that I had no plan. Um, and then I had to try to figure it out, but I didn't know how to figure that out, right? I was just kind of going off gut, going off of heart. And so now I started to listen to other people, right? What should I do? Oh, you should go to college because you're smart. Okay. All right, man, I'll go to college. What should I go to college for? Right. So I just kept now looking outside instead of really getting serious with myself, right? Or getting real with myself about, okay, what might be the life that I want to create now, given this constraint, given the fact that I can't go down that path. So, already I'm in this kind of personal growth situation. I just obviously, didn't have the awareness that I have now. And so that started this life of I'm just going to do what this other person says I should. That sounds like maybe that's a good idea. And that compounds, right? So over the next 10 years, I had built this life based off of what everybody else thought I should do. And then because I was asking everybody else and not checking in with myself, I was also looking for the validation from everyone else, right? Am I doing a good job, right? Am I doing what I should be doing? And instead of, again, checking in with myself, does this feel good? Does this light me up? Does this fill me up? Do I feel whole? Do I feel satisfied? Do I feel fulfilled? And ultimately, at almost 30 years old, I did not enjoy my life, right? I was bored. I was frustrated. I was just kind of bouncing from job to job every couple of years, just continuing to seek what is this thing that's going to make me happy. But I was looking in all the wrong places. So when I joined the military, I was at this point of like, I can't figure this out, right? I'm just going to go here. You tell me what to do, and I'm going to go do it 110%.
All right, but wait, hold on. I want to, because
Yeah.
I'm just picturing you, 28 years old, walking into the recruiter's office because you're no longer that young stud. You're 28. So you're like the old man. So like going into the recruiter's office, and it's not like you're picking, I want to go to supply. I want to go to be a ranger. So what was that whole, take us back to that day in that office.
Yeah. So like, Rich, I never really paid attention to like, the rules, right. Or the shoulds of what I could and couldn't do. That's kind of the interesting thing is here I was living this life based on what everyone else said I should do, but I was still giving it, 110%. I'd be like, all right, I'm going. Right. And I just always believed that I could succeed and I could do whatever, I put my mind to. I wasn't the youngest guy in the crew, but I was one of the strongest, right? I was one of the toughest, one of the most energetic, right? And so I had, just a sort of side note too, I was in the punk scene, like I mentioned, right? So I had a mohawk and a neck tattoo, and I walked into that office, right? So, now I know what Ranger Regiment is like, or what it was like at that time anyway. So maybe that actually qualified me. I don't know, but yeah, when I walked in, I just knew that was what I was going to do, and I was going to put everything that I had into it. And I was working out a ton. I was in different shape then. But it just didn't, again, I was like, it didn't cross my mind that I wouldn't make it.
All right. So that's something I want to harp on.
Yeah.
On this show, I've had Navy SEALs, I've had Green Berets, Delta Force, and I love you guys. I love the special operating community because, like, as I was talking to my friend John McCaskill, Navy SEAL commander, he wrote the book Embrace the Suck. Yeah. And I said, John, you guys look more like my accountants than I thought. I'm expecting John Rambo, and it wasn't really that way. So, talk to us about, because you went in as a 28-year-old man, you've seen a lot of people not make the selection process. What was it about you that made you pass the selection process? Because even John said, or Rich DeVinny would say, because either I was going to do that push-up or I was going to die doing that push-up. It was never quit. So talk to us about why you made selection and a lot of people probably didn't.
Yeah. The first word that comes to mind is heart, right? And I've got very strong perseverance that we've already kind of touched on, right? I consider that one of my superpowers. One of the biggest superpowers I have comes that's related to perseverance, but it comes through in kind of a twisted way. And this has been a real big challenge for me most of my life, is control. Right. So when I put together my desire to control and perseverance with a mission that feels 100% aligned, right? Remember I said, like, my whole life I'd wanted to join the military. Now we were at war. I was like, I'm going, right? I know this is for me. This is So having that clarity of vision combined with my just natural perseverance, um, and belief in what I was doing, there was no freaking way I was going to fail. Right? They were going to have to physically drag me out of there, for me not to keep going. And I had kind of been training for this in some strange ways, right? Not necessarily consciously, but in the past decade, from high school to when I joined, I've been living 100 miles an hour, right? I was working, I was playing music, I was going to shows, I was going to parties. Like, you know, some of this stuff is not what I would recommend for a typical training program, but I'd stay up until 2, 3 in the morning, go get a couple hours of sleep, and then head off to work in the morning, and go do my engineering job, and then rinse and repeat. And so when it came to like the psychological stuff, just like stand there in formation for a few hours, don't get a lot of sleep, um, that kind of stuff. They kind of play those mind games. That stuff didn't bother me. I'm like, okay, I'm good. I know what I'm here to do. I know they're just trying to mess with me, right? That's cool. So it was a unique combination of experiences and just my own kind of innate abilities, I think, combined with that clarity of vision.
And one thing I've noticed about you guys, and like I said, I love the SOF community. You got most of you guys, not all, but some of you guys, most of you guys are very analytical. I noticed that very very well read, very well studied. They make SOPs for days. They have their plan for their plan for the plan before the plan, and they realize that, like Mike Tyson said, everybody got his plan until you get punched in the mouth. But sometimes you got to have a harder plan. So,
Yeah.
okay, you said you did 4 years, multiple deployments, and we're not going to talk about that shit. But you said you wanted to get in so bad, and then you're at 4 years, and you're getting out. What
Yeah.
was that whole process? What was the mindset? What was the reasoning for you to get out at 4 years?
Yeah. Man, there's kind of a lot that goes into this, but I when I was in 08 to 2012, super busy, right? So I came to experience what it was like to serve, to go to combat, to be a part of this elite unit. And I got that in spades, right? So it was 4 years of just full on, all out training, combat, experiencing being a part of this amazing unit with these incredible guys. And I also was kind of looking around and going, okay, the guys that are in here into their 40s and 50s, they're pretty beat, they're pretty beat up. And that, I was getting older. So I was 33 years old around the time I got out, and I was starting a family. And I was also looking at these guys who had young kids, and they were going, on these deployments and either not coming back, or when they came back, their kids didn't really, they had to kind of rebuild relationship with them. And family is one of my top values. So once that became a new reality, I started to really think about, like, hey, is this really what I want to keep doing? In the long term, is that sustainable for me? And I really had this desire to be around, to see my kids, to be a part of that. And so those were really the biggest things. And it was a tough decision, man. I loved being in regiment. I loved what I was doing. I was on a pretty cool track. I made E5 in 3.5 years, and was headed towards some pretty cool opportunities. And so it was a tough decision. We were losing a lot of guys. I lost one of my best buds in 2009. And so the feel of it did start to shift too, right? From this, like, hey, like, rah, rah, we're like, we're heroes. We're going off to save the world and liberate, the oppressed. And it started to feel a little bit different after a while. And the weight of putting each one of those, deaths or injuries or kind of questionable things in the ruck, it just started to get really heavy. So all of that kind of combined to make it clear that it was time to go. And even still, it was tough.
All right.
Even
So, first of all, because I want to dig deep into it, I want to thank our sponsors. As you guys know, I was in the military for 23 years. I was with GNC for over 30 years. I loved pre-workouts, but every pre-workout I ever had tasted like shit, or I didn't get enough energy out of it. So I came out with my own pre-workout, and I'm actually drinking it right now. It's called Vertical Momentum coffee, pre-workout coffee. Twice the amount of caffeine, twice the amount of energy. The best part of it, it's all made with veteran hands. It's all veteran hand roasted, and 100% of the proceeds go to help veterans struggling with PTSD and homelessness. I'm working with Project Die Hard. They're actually building houses and billets so a veteran can bring his family, stay for a year, take care of the veteran and their family for one whole year for totally for free. So if you guys love coffee, if you love a mission, check out Vertical Momentum Coffee. And also, if you guys want to start your own podcast like this, my friend Eric helped me start my own podcast. Now we're in the top 0.5% of all podcasts in the world with over 2 million impressions this year alone. So guys, if you want to start your own podcast, let me know. All right, brother. So now let's break it down. Because like one of my friends, Sergeant Nick Valentine, always talks about, when you step off the base, the military does not give a shit about you. Your phone stops ringing. You lose the camaraderie. You lose a paycheck, and you lose a mission. And a lot of us end up at the bottom of a bottle of whiskey with a pistol in our hand. So talk to us about your transitioning when you first got out of the military.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds about right. When I was ETSing, the guys were deploying again, and I remember standing on the tarmac with the planes taking off, and once they got in the air, I just had this just visceral sense like, oh shit, they're gone. I'm gonna be out by the time they get back, and that's it, and there were a couple of relationships that straggled a little bit after that because I was still in Savannah, but ultimately that was my experience. It was cold turkey. Hey, these relationships are pretty much gone. And yeah, the military is designed to create soldiers out of civilians, not the other way around. And so I was out there swinging in the breeze, and now with a bunch of physical stuff that popped up, physical injuries and difficulties, and mental, big mental challenges, PTSD, and a totally new reality that I had to spin up really fast and figure out how to make this work. And my analytical engineering brain and my capacity for perseverance and my tendency for control, I dove right into that and just, all right, let me just figure it out, right? I'm just going to figure it out and I'm going to execute. Boom, 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 right? Very industrial, very kind of militaristic approach to my life. And that works for a little while, but it's not sustainable, right? It's inefficient, takes too much fuel. And eventually I just completely burnt out 4 or 5 years out of the military and, hit rock bottom and had to start rebuilding with intention, right? Which here I am, almost 40 years old. And now I get to look at my life with intention. What the hell does that mean? Right.
Well,
But
so something I want to talk about because it never gets talked about. I don't think any veteran show have ever talked about it like we do on this show. I had Lieutenant Colonel Scott Mann on the show talking about his amazing book. And he says, one thing that we deal with is moral injuries. And we never talk about it. We always talk about PTSD, but we never talk about the moral injuries that we come home with. Because veterans, first responders, doctors, nurses see and do shit that nobody should ever have to see or do. And we come home with that. And I think once we start dealing with our moral injuries is when we can actually move from post-traumatic stress to post-traumatic growth. Do you agree?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I think it's definitely a big factor. Um, it's what we're doing as as soldiers is we are trained to hunt and kill other humans, right? And that's that's a tricky one, right, with the morality that we all, that most of us kind of embrace, right? The versions of morality all look at killing as a sin, um, as not a good thing for a productive society, right? And so, if a gang member murders another gang member, there's a likelihood that they're going to be on death row and be executed, right? Because we say, hey, that's not okay. But when you put on a uniform and you follow orders according to an institutional agenda, it's okay as long as you do it in the right way, right? Don't step out of those bounds, those rules of engagement, right? Because then maybe you'll end up in prison just like the other guy. And so, yeah, that's a really tricky one for the human psyche to figure out. And while you're in that environment, it's like, well, we just don't think about that, right? I'm following orders, I'm following the rules. This is the culture. It's okay. But when you get out, right? When you get out, it's a opportunity and challenge to figure out, like, what is my new identity, what is my new reality, right? I'm a firm believer that you cannot apply the exact same operating system that you had in the military in civilian life, or you're just going to cause a lot of suffering. So that's an opportunity for you to figure out, like, okay, what are these, what are the SOPs for my life? What are my values? How do I live and arrange my life according to that so that I can thrive? And a lot of that stuff can start to come up, right? Like, whoa, what was I doing? What was I really doing? What were we really doing? And how do I actually feel? How do I sit with the fact that I may have contributed or may have directly ended someone's life, right? Um, that can be a game stopper for a lot of guys. Right? It's just too much to try to figure out.
So then, how did Nick go about reimagining and reinventing his life? I mean, you had to make some kind of change because, like my friend James Clear wrote a book called Atomic Habits, and
Yeah.
you have to change your thought process. You have to change your habits if you're going to change your life because it's all an inside job. Nobody's coming to save your ass, So you had to start changing. So what were some of the processes that you started doing different?
It looks like it rebooted on my end
Yep.
for a
So
second.
what were some of the processes that you started doing differently?
Mm. Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. No, this is great because this is what I end up now. Now I teach this, right, as a coach, and I help people one on one. I create groups. I do live events. Really excited about a live event coming up Sunday, actually, here in San Diego. Um, so yeah, it's about, the biggest question is, what do you want? Right? Like, that's really that's the question that will change everything if you really take some time to consider that and get real and uh, check in with yourself. Um, Having a vision for your life is critical. So when you're in the military, you get one handed to you, right? And then you can kind of craft your own path based on that. But when you're on your own, when you're out here in the civilian world, you have to figure out, what is it that I want? Why am I even doing any of this stuff? Right? Otherwise, it's going to be real easy to get knocked off course, and that's going to happen. But when you have that vision, you come back to it. Oh yeah, right, right. So this is what I'm doing. So for me, once I started to recreate my life, I started to get really curious. And curiosity is one of the biggest things that I teach around. Is, when you're curious, you start to see things that you didn't see before. You start to be more creative. You actually start to, raise your frequency, raise your vibration to match the frequency that's out there with that possibility that you can imagine. Does that make sense?
Oh, you're preaching to the choir, brother. Preaching to
Yeah.
the choir.
So, yeah. Yeah, no. So having that vision requires, getting into your imagination and believing that something is possible, right? So there's all sorts of different ways that we can look at it. But for me, I reached a point of so much pain and suffering that it was like, okay, either check out or figure out what I'm going to do next. Right. And so, I started to ask around, and I started to talk to people, and that led me to other people who were searching, and that led me to groups that were kind of, visioning and creating and searching together. And I ended up hiring a life coach, and that changed everything, man. That was like putting race fuel on the fire. It was just like, oh, right. Having someone there who's in your corner, who's, challenging you, but also supporting you and championing you and guiding you right through their wisdom of how the human journey can unfold, um, to get you to do the work, to get you to do the exploration and get really clear on what it is you want to do, and then go play for it. Right? Like, okay, cool. You say you want to do this. What's the first couple experiments that you want to set up? First couple actions you want to take to go see if that's true. Right. And then it becomes this game of like, all right, let me see, what is it I want to create? Let me go take action. Let me see what comes up, and then let me reevaluate. And that iterative process, which many veterans will be familiar with, is super, super effective. And suddenly you look back after a few months and you're like, hey, I'm doing it. I'm actually creating this vision that I had, that I just imagined out of, out of nowhere. So that was really powerful to start to embrace that practice. And then it was continuing to dive deep into wisdom around how do you become more resilient? How do you become more adaptive? Right? What are some other tools or methodologies that are out there? And what I landed on was this play model that I now teach. And I have a little flyer here. I'm gonna hold it up for you because I like visual stuff. And this is what we're doing, right? We're playing in a social setting. 99.9% of the time, we're out there interacting with people, right?
That looks familiar. I think I've seen that somewhere.
Yeah. 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 So that's it. Just, getting out there, and the biggest thing, and it's related to curiosity, but the biggest thing that I would ask, anyone who's listening or anyone that I talk to consider is, how can you drop the judgment, right? How can you just have a little bit less judgment, a little more judgment-free awareness of what's going on? And one of the easiest ways to do that is just as you're observing your life, as you're considering what's happening in a day-to-day rhythm, bring in the statement, how interesting, right? Like, oh, that's interesting. I'm doing that thing again. I said I didn't want to do that, right? Huh. And instead of beating yourself up and, bringing in the shame and the guilt and the judgment, just bring in how interesting, right? And then, do I want to stay here, or do I want to go towards, that vision that I have? And if I want to go towards that vision, how might I do that? Right? What feels like a way I could start to do that? And just that one practice of interrupting the judgment pattern changes everything.
And one thing I got to say, as you're talking, I'm thinking about, even the greatest of all time, Tom Brady, loves to be coached up. Some of the greatest athletes in the world, they have coaches, and their coaches have coaches. But reason why I'm bringing it up, because I've been struggling the last couple of days, and people know about, if I'm struggling with something, I'm very vulnerable and I'm authentic. I'll say, listen, I'm having a bad day. And I had a bad day yesterday, and I woke up this morning, turned on my phone, and there's a message from Dean Graziosi. He's like, Rich, you're doing a good job. And sometimes you just need to hear from somebody, because sometimes, no matter how successful you become, you still deal with imposter syndrome.
Mm-hmm.
So it's nice to have a coach, to have a mentor, somebody to be like, you're doing the right things. You're just going through a rough day. You know what I mean? So talk to us about mentorship and coaching and stuff like that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I'm a coach. I have my own coaching business, And I always have a coach, right? Sometimes multiple coaches that I'm paying for, that I'm spending time and energy around, um, because I believe in it, because this stuff works, and because everybody needs that, right? We're too close to our own stuff a lot of the time, so we need that outside perspective, and like you said, that support on some of those tough days, right? Um, one of the coolest things that my coaches do for me is say, how is this for you, right? Everything is happening for you. So how is this challenge for you? Right.
Yeah.
That's like just that awareness, right? Sometimes it sucks to hear that, right?
Yep.
Sometimes I kick and yell at that, like, but eventually it comes around and it's like, okay, yep, this is the lesson I needed to learn. This is the gift. This is the, whatever ability coming online. Um, and this stuff is available, right? If it, it's you can create the support. You just have to be intentional, and you don't, if you don't have the money to do it, great. Find a friend who's on board, right? Create a little check-in group. Find just take some action towards that. Put some intention towards that. Hey, I want to have some kind of support, some kind of deeper support. And it's cool when you start to just really put your energy behind an idea, the universe supports you, right? So even if you're like, I don't know how this is going to happen, right? Um, Put some energy and some intention behind it and see what happens. Um, I, for one, am super passionate about building communities and, groups and connecting people. Um, I'm doing some big stuff right now with some folks out here in San Diego, building a community for special operations veterans. Um, I'm part of a community in Ocean Beach that is bringing in all sorts of leaders and teachers around movement and sound healing and coaching, breath work, all these kind of things. And, because we need each other, right? We are not meant to live this life in isolation. We're meant to be in community. We're meant to support each other. We're meant to be real with each other. I'm looking to start a men's circle here for veterans and non-veterans, because it's one of the most important things is to set up an environment where you feel heard, where you feel seen, where you can bring all your shit, and we can support each other, but also we can celebrate each other, right? We can encourage each other, push each other to do better and follow our hearts and follow our dreams. We're just not meant to do it alone, right? We always play better when we play together.
Now, something that you talk about, and you know, if you break things down to playing a game, because
Yeah.
I'm a big gamer. At night before I go to bed, I'm playing either Madden, NBA 2K, MLB, NASCAR. I'm doing something at night before I go to bed. And I hear a lot of people, say, well, that may be stupid but for me, that's my peace time. That's when I can sit, ponder my day. And if I'm playing 2K3 and I dominate the game and get 30 rebounds, I wake up the next morning feeling I did something. Even though it's stupid, but it's kind of my way to focus on winning. But also,
Yeah.
I hear a lot of people, they say, they talk about games and playing. But somebody once asked Warren Buffett, "Why don't you play video games or watch football?" He says, "Because money is my game."
Yes.
So, I think that if you can make whatever you want, even like you said, I wanted to get into rooms with some of the most famous people and the most popular and the most influential people. So I started to play in the game as well. How about if I promote their stuff for free, don't ask anything back? What would happen?
Yeah.
Now I'm friends with Gary Vee, Dean Graziosi, people like that, because I decided to use it as a game instead of
Mhm.
just trying to strategy. Make it fun. And
Yeah.
business should be fun.
Yeah.
People spend money with people they like,
That's right.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, totally. Yeah. And that's yeah, I mean,
About make business fun again.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. This is one of my favorite things to do. A lot of my clients are running businesses or starting businesses, And, there's this pattern, this idea that a lot of us have absorbed, that like, oh, business is work, right? Business is all about the strategy and the da, 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 and, and then I get to play afterwards, right? Or I get to have fun at some other time. The challenge is that, a lot of times the business starts to absorb everything. And the truth is that, just like I was living my life, in this with this perseverance and militaristic approach, it's not sustainable. It's not sustainable, right? So one of my clients, recently, this is just an example of like playing while while growing the business, because business is challenging at times. She got a notice that one of her main retainer clients was going to cut her retainer by what equaled 25K for the year, right? And it was a shock out of nowhere, right? So over a week of coaching together, just like 2 sessions, she was able to generate an additional 25K from her other clients just by getting out there and playing for it, right? We're like, okay, here's the game. You need to replace that 25K, or more. And so we set up what's the game plan? Well, okay, let's really get into this state of creativity, of possibility, right? Who else is in your world? Who else could you reach out to? Are there any other opportunities that maybe, we're kind of on the back burner, but now there's this kind of urgency around it. You could tap into it. And because we were able to immediately get into curiosity and get into this kind of spirit of play, she didn't get stuck, right? And like, oh man, I'm lost that money and I don't know what to do. And, then that spirals into all this negative self-talk, I'm not a good business person, or maybe I just shouldn't do this. It was like, no, what's possible? And then go out and play for it, right? Worst case, somebody's going to say no. But these are the kind of things. There's a lot of fear that's in there in our social environment, that keeps people from even trying, from even going out there and doing something. So because she was able to go out and be in the right energy, right? Because a lot of the stuff that I do with my clients is about, hey, let's get you aligned so that you're not freaking out inside, because everything's energy, right? All interactions, there's so much more going on than we can tell with our 5 senses. And so if I'm talking to somebody and I'm all torn up inside and I'm, scared and freaking out and thinking, they're just going to say no, that's going to impact the interaction. But if I'm there and I'm experiencing inner peace, right, and aligned with what my intention is, and letting go of like, hey, it's either going to happen or it's not. It's okay. I'm just here to play. I'm just here to invite someone to a different experience. That's also going to impact the outcome. And I've seen it so many times, man. People just like thinking, oh, I don't know, this is a big ask. It's like, cool. All right, let's get you aligned, right? And let's get you energized. And then we practice how to play it, right? We do some role play sometimes. And before you know it, they're like, all right, cool, I'm going to do this. This is going to be fun. And then they go do it, and they get the thing that they're asking for, right? Time and time again. A lot of times it's money, right? Raises or income. Sometimes it's relationship stuff, right? And so it's really beautiful what opens up when you start to lean into that possibility, and when you have a chance to practice it in a safe container, right? So we go through our lives so much of the time with these big, potentially life-altering conversations or opportunities, and we just wing it. And then we wonder why, maybe it didn't work out. When you have a chance to practice, you get through all that first.
And I had a friend who come on the show, and he was an Apache pilot in Afghanistan. And he said, and I've never heard it said before, he said, before every mission, we would do something called chair flying. And
I've heard of this. Yeah.
And if you would just do that, and no matter what it is you're going to do, just try to do that, put yourself in that position, work your way through it, and eventually you'll be able to figure it out. But now one thing, I love relationships. I'm a big relationship guy. since, now I've had you on my show, now I want to build generational relationships. But
Yes.
it's amazing how many deals are made on a golf course.
Mm-hmm.
How many deals are made when you go to Yankee Stadium and they have the boxes? There's reasons why. And if you ever think about any good times you've ever had with your family, it was never you were at the hospital, you were at work. It was the times you were at play.
Yeah.
And I think we, as adults, we need to play again and become childlike in a lot of different ways. Because a lot of us are so friggin' uptight and say just can't just have fun, be in
Yeah.
the moment with your kids. If they want to play Wii with the kids.
Yeah.
If you want, just become a kid again. I think if we could do that, is when we can start playing again. Is when we can start enjoying our life. Because I remember even when we were deployed, we may have went out, but when we came back, we were playing Madden, we were playing football, we were watching stupid movies on a little TV this
Yeah.
big. But the play times were we played just as hard as we were.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
100%. And there is this invitation, to learn from children and how they move through the world, especially up to like age 6 or 7. They're so free, right? And they're just being themselves. They're just expressing love. They're going out there and inviting other kids. You've seen two kids on a playground that never met before, walk right up to each other. Hey, what's your name? You want to play a game? Right? This is possible for us. And a lot of people, the word play is provocative. A lot of people are like, oh, whoa, 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 I'm not going to play. I'm an adult. I got to make money. I got responsibilities. The thing is, though, we can learn from that and apply that as an operating system. So we don't have to be children, right? But we can learn from them, right? Like, um, I had an analogy about AI and asymmetrical warfare and stuff, but the point is that we can learn from that and apply that to our own approach, right? So, okay, let's say you're a businessman. Great. You're making deals, right? You're negotiating. What if you took some of that energy of that childlike interaction and applied it to an interaction with your business partners, right? Just kind of, getting curious, approaching this in a different way. Um, Asking for something different, right? Um, and there's a lot of different models of play in our world that in my coaching, we draw from all of them, right? And we draw from especially things that resonate the most with you. Some people resonate with that playground analogy. They're like, man, I just want to be like that again. I just want to feel like myself and just be able to play and move around. Awesome. We'll pull a lot from that kind of analogy. Some people are like, hey, I've got a serious mission in this world and I need to make it happen, right? It's about legacy or whatever. Right. Then we might draw from the model of, performance art, right? Like a famous musician or maybe it's that they resonate with their life being this quest, right? So I'm an adventurer and I'm on the trail. Um, Either way, we can learn from that, right? And just apply it and move through our lives in a different way that has less shame, less guilt, less control, less judgment, right? And it's really amazing what happens, man. We start to move really fast. We start to really enjoy life. Um, you know, the the ultimate aim is to follow the aliveness, right? What lights you up when you're energized and when you're clear about where you're going, you can do it. You can do anything you want to do.
Okay. So now, for the last couple of minutes, I've never had a word of the year. This is the first year I have ever picked a word, and that word is intention. It's,
Mm.
for everything that I do, I want it to be intentional. And I
Mhm.
think back to I had Steve Sims on the show, and he was talking about how he was dealing. He had a friend. He was a nine-figure earner,
Mhm.
and and Steve talked to his assistant, said, "What is he really like?" And he said, "Oh, he loves Maroon 5." And
Nice.
his birthday's coming up, so he got him an autographed guitar by Maroon 5. Now
Nice.
that may only been a $500 guitar, and he was a 9-figure earner, but because he hit that soft spot, that'll never be forgotten. And I think sometimes when we
Yeah.
have our friends, we have our business partners. We only get to know them on a certain level. We don't get to know the real Nick, or like my one of my great friends, Lane Malone. A lot of people don't they know Lane for being who he is, but they don't really know him for who he is. So I think as we in business or in life, I think sometimes we have to get a little bit deeper to start building those real relationships, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. By the way, I love Lane. Uh, he's, uh, he's a brother. Um, yeah, absolutely. And that's, y- it comes down to honestly knowing yourself, right? So that's, there's this game where when we're relating with other people, there's a there's ways, there's approaches to relate more authentically, to get curious and have deeper conversations. But with relationships, I believe that relationships are one of our greatest mirrors, right? It's teaching us how to love ourselves, how to know ourselves, and we can only love other people as much as we love ourselves. So that's a fun game, let me tell you.
Yeah, and I absolutely love that. And I also know, I forget who said it, so forgive me. And I hear it all the time, but it means so much, that if you're hanging out with 5 millionaires, you're more than likely going to be that sixth millionaire.
Yeah.
So a lot of it, I think, in success or in life, it's even in the Bible, it says, walk not into the counsel of the ungodly. So
Mhm.
who you hang out with, who you listen to, who you talk to are going to if they're in your ecosystem, that's who you're going to be. And I think sometimes if you want to get out of where you used to be and move into where you want to be, you have to change ecosystems. Do you believe in that?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. That's ecosystems, environments. It's super critical, right? We adapt to whatever environment we're in, and that's that there's an imperative, a human imperative to belong wherever we are. So there's parts of the body and mind that are always scanning the environment, always adapting, so that we can belong in that environment. And so the good news about that is that if you are clear about who you want to be, what you want to create, you can start to seek out those environments that are going to help you get there. You can start to intentionally create the environment that's going to just, rocket you into that vision for yourself and for your life. It's yeah, it's pretty cool.
And that's something that my friend and mentor, Mr. Ed Milet, talks about all the time. You reticulate your activating system in your mind, you're going to find
Hmm.
what you're looking for. So whether that's
Hmm.
success or that's failure, whether it's opportunities, whatever it is you're searching for, your RAS system is actually going to find it for you. So last couple of minutes, tell us a little bit about what you got going on, how we can support you, and how we can support your mission.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, I'm shifting things a little bit right now to be mainly in person. I'm creating play shops to really spread this message of play and dive deeper. And so I'm in the San Diego area looking to create play shops all over San Diego and just basically do this full time. Um, I've got some really cool visions for these play shops where I'm doing one this weekend. There's one coming up at a dojo in Ocean Beach. It's really cool setting. And then I'm going to bring them to rock climbing gyms. I want to bring them to indoor skydiving locations, and also out on the trail and start doing 1 day, 3 day experiences out in nature where we get in our body, we get physical, we have some fun, but we also dive deep into the transformational work. And it's cool when you do something like at a rock climbing gym. We'll get into visioning, we'll get into some of these concepts and really start to practice them with each other, get really connected. and start to build community. And then we get on the wall, right? And we climb. The wall's always got some wisdom for you. By the time you get off that wall, you've got some more insight to whatever it is you're visioning. We'll integrate that, and then we move on. But I love the idea of pulling in playful, challenging, physical activities with community, with transformation, with intention. And that's the vision for me, is just to keep doing that, keep creating those until I'm at capacity and I need to hire people to help me do it.
So then how do we find you?
So I've got a website, which is just www.nickdevlin.coaching.com, nickdevlincoaching.com. And I'm on Instagram at The Real Nick Devlin. And I'm on some of the other social platforms as well, LinkedIn and Facebook. So yeah. And, I'd love to offer listeners, anyone who's interested, who'd love to connect, or would love to kind of explore creating a vision, love to offer a checking call, a visioning call, 15, 20 minutes. You got nothing to lose. And it could be life-changing.
And I love it. Nick, brother, I'm so grateful we finally got a chance to chat. When I had Lane on the show, we were bragging about you. So I just want to say thank you for being a brother. Yeah. I think we've been friends for a couple of years now, and I just want to say thank you for always being there and being an inspiration to me.
Hey, I appreciate you, Richard. Right back at you, and I look forward to the next time, man.
All right, brother. Hey, guys, remember, like my T-shirt says, today I decided. Guys, you get to decide if you want to be a victim or the victor today. So you make that decision today. And guys, remember, vertical momentum. The only way to go is but up. And I'll catch you guys tomorrow. Nick, have an amazing week, brother.
You too, man. Talk to you soon.